The Raid Shadow Legends video, and as you guys know, I pulled for Michinaki recently, and I figured what better way to show him off than to bring him into a clan boss team. So I built him up real quick. Took me a day, built him up, mastered him, did all the fun stuff with this guy. But what I'm gonna do is I run a myth fu team, and what that is essentially is an unkillable team where we go at a 2-1 ratio. We do a ton of damage. I'm usually doing like, somewhere between like 140 and 170 million damage on clan boss. We have a good affinity up today. It's a blue affinity, so it's going to work for me. Now, normally I run it with, Eris, Seeker, Demitha, Fushan, and Turvold, which is like a great combination. Turvold brings a weak in. He hits really hard. We have a lot of buffs on him, so he's always doing crazy stuff. But I thought a great way to showcase Michinaki would be to bring him in directly for Turvold, and that way we can get a pretty good view of how he works in that exact same team. And so I built him up to the appropriate speed. I did try running this on Spirit yesterday, and my speeds are slightly off for that, and I'm not really planning on substituting Turvold out for this team. I really want to use Michinaki for Hydra, actually, but I figured seeing how he works for Clan Boss is a really good place to look at him. Not only is he an incredible damage dealing champion, but he brings some really great debuffs like decreased defense, decrease attack. On top of that, he's a defensive based champion, which means that building him to survive means he's only doing more damage. So he's actually great for even traditional clan boss teams. I would love to have him for my current clan boss team, especially on my free to play, not my main account. That one's fine. But like on my free to play, oh my gosh, this guy would be a game changer. And he often gets these free like ally attack abilities as long as Hex is on the boss. So maintaining Hex is the big thing, and since we're going at a 2-1 ratio, that really shouldn't be much of an issue at all. So I'm really excited to try this guy out and see how he works in this team. And, I figured the best way to do this is kind of to compare them. So I'm going to show a little bit of the run with Michinaki. I'm going to show the final results I have with both a Michinaki team and a Turvold team, and then we're going to compare the stats of the two, so you kind of get an understanding of exactly how powerful this champion is, because as well as I feel like I built Michinaki, I don't feel like I built him extremely well. I feel like there's actually a lot of damage I left off the table here. I did not optimize him. I did not, perfect him. I really tried to use gear that I wasn't using already. This is my main account, and yet it's still a darn good result. So is he going to be better than Turvold? I actually don't know. I haven't done a full run yet. Is he going to be, good? Well, I've done half of a run so far, and yeah, it's going to be pretty good. So this is going to be definitely something worth watching. If you just pulled Michinaki, you're not sure where to use him, this should be a really good guide as far as one place that you can use him for sure, and then hopefully open up some other options for you. I think his best spot is going to be for Hydra, but I think he's going to be amazing for the Demon Lord clan boss as well. And definitely somebody, if you're struggling there, you're like almost guaranteed 100% going to want to bring him in. Essentially, outside of Acrizia, this is one of the, and honestly, he may be even the best clan boss champion in this game as far as damage goes. There's some champions that might do more damage, like Ninja or Turvold, but they're not going to be as easy to bring in. They're not going to be as useful and have as much utility as Michinaki does. And so, yeah, this guy is an absolute beast. So enough talk. Let's go ahead. All I want to do, I'm going to show you quickly the team setup, and then we're going to jump in the run. Hey, just a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, take a moment and hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so you don't miss the next one of these videos that comes out. And of course, if you guys need help with your account, you can go to my website, DeadwoodJedi.com, where I'll be happy to look at your squad and make whatever improvements are needed to be made. But, when I'm doing that, I still want to play my own account. That's why I use BlueStacks, which you'll find linked down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. BlueStacks is a great way to run multiple instances of the game on your computer at the same time. And if you enjoyed today's music, we have that SoundStripe link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video as well. Use code DeadwoodJedi, save 15%. Okay, so you can see I've got two teams here, one with Michinaki, one with Turvold instead. And that's it. That's the run we're going to be doing. Actually, I'm going to swap these two around now that I think about it. Prefer Seeker to get stunned and allow Michinaki to maybe get more attacks in. Wouldn't be a bad thing at all to do. I just need to open that up and make this his prioritized skill. And then when we get in here, Michinaki right here, we want to prioritize. I mean, actually, I suppose we don't really need to do anything, but the one thing we definitely want to get out is the Hex ability. That's going to be the most important thing that we can do. Everything else is, whatever. Because the thing is, we don't need to decrease attack he brings. The decreased defense is actually covered by Fushan in this build. I don't want to turn it off because I want to be able to see all the skills. Though probably just using his A1 and his A3 is the better way to go as far as damage goes. But you can see, like, I have him pretty decently built, and we'll look more closely at his kit, but 5200 defense, 260 crit damage, 247 accuracy. He's going to be able to land all his debuffs. He's going to be able to hit pretty decently hard. But more importantly, he's just going to get a lot of attacks in. All right, so as we jump in, Myth-Fu teams are pretty straightforward, right? Basically, Eris is going to cleanse everybody, give us that increased speed, and, Demyth is going to extend the duration of the buffs. Seeker's going to give us a turn meter boost, and then Demyth is going to make us unkillable. So that's kind of the essence of it. We have Fushan for the speed aura primarily, and there goes Michinaki. Now, I want to point out, there's no weaken in this comp. This should be significantly lower damage than what we do when we bring Turvold into this team. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm actually really curious to find out, truth be told. But like, we need to kind of keep that part in mind, that the damage shouldn't be as good. Now, you'll notice there is no Hex up right now. Without Hex, we don't get those ally attacks like we did right there. And this guy does a lot of attacks as a result. There we go, got another attack in, it's great. And that's kind of the benefit of him, is he's just attacking constantly. And you can see, I mean, we're basically doing 100,000 on every single one of those hits. We only had decreased defense out there. We could add a weaken debuff. It'd be so much nicer, really. But he basically got a 50-50 shot of ally attacking every time a teammate attacks. And because we're going so fast, we're getting everybody's taking 2 attacks every turn. He's basically getting like an extra 5 attacks every turn, which is pretty ridiculous. I guess maybe like an extra 4 attacks is probably a little bit more realistic. But a really strong damage dealer, and we're already over 2 million damage a turn, which is a pretty good spot to start at, I would say. And so yeah, full debuff bar. He brings in that decreased defense, the decreased attack. So if you can actually build him in a traditional clan boss team, I think he's even going to be better than he would for anything else. I think that's actually his optimal build, is more traditional with a defensive kind of focus, trying to survive, because there's no increased defense buff on this team, which would up his damage considerably, right? Seeker brings an increased attack buff. Sometimes we'll get an increased defense buff if like the clan boss crits on somebody. So like, there's some potential for it on a couple hits, but it's not like, a guaranteed thing, and it's not consistent out here. So definitely there's a lot of room to kind of improve this build, as you say. But yeah, man, it's pretty ridiculous the kind of damage he's doing. If we want to compete with what Turvold does, we need to be in that 3 million per turn range, which looks like we're pretty close to that right now. So it's a pretty cool run. And he's darn good champion. And just watching all those extra attacks that he does do when our teammates attack is pretty cool. Like, that's an extra attack, and then he takes his turn. I think there's another extra attack. Honestly, it's all the time that he's doing that, and that damage just adds up over that time frame. So I'm real curious to see what kind of damage that he ends up doing for our team here, and see what he does. The HP burn's a nice little bonus too. That's definitely not something to scoff at. I don't know that we're gonna out damage Turvold, but again, without weaken, this is a pretty darn good champion. So I figure if we get even 2/3 of what a Turvold team does, that's a pretty good result. So anyway, I'm gonna let this run. We'll jump towards the end, see what kind of damage we do, and then compare it to what I'm going to do later on with the Turvold team. Okay, so we got 120 million basically from Michinaki, did like 39 million or something like that. We did 59 million with Turvold and 163 million overall. So what's the big takeaway? Obviously, we did more with Turvold, but does that mean Turvold's actually better? I would argue no. I mean, let's look at the facts. Turvold gets an increased attack buff the full fight. What's his name? Doesn't have that. Michinaki doesn't have that. He's the defensive base champion, so that does him zero good. There's a weaken debuff. That's going to give you an extra 25% to your damage. What's the difference in the damage here? 25%. Not a direct 1-to-1 ratio, but I mean, that's a pretty significant, difference there. On top of that, Turvold has a blessing. He's got Phantom Touch. He's doing a lot more damage as a result. Michinaki doesn't have that. Now, to be fair, Michinaki does have HP burn, and when we have HP burn, that means we're not getting the damage from poison because, filling up a slot. But I think that's still a pretty big favor in, pretty big thing in Michinaki's favor is that we're getting that debuff on there. Bottom line, he's ridiculously good. And so I think absolutely a champion that we want to bring in on our teams. And I think someone that's going to be extremely good for Clan Boss. The fact that he's not even nearly built as well as Turvold is a whole, another part of this ballgame. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at their builds so we understand exactly why that difference is so significant. Okay, first off, looking at Turvold, we can see he's got 7,500 attack, basically. He's built in all attack gear, fatal and cruel. So his attack is out of the world here. Not only that, he's got 280 crit damage. Now, Turvold does give himself a crit rate buff, and that's not something I should take away from him, right? That's one of the advantages that he brings to the table. And so we're able to build a lower crit rate, build more attack, build more crit damage on his kit. But still, that's incredibly high numbers right there. So it's no wonder that he's doing nearly 60 million damage by himself. And then if we take a minute and look at Michinaki, he's got 5,200 defense. That's nearly 2,000 lower in his damage stat compared to Turvold. That's a huge difference. He's got 260 crit damage. It's nearly 20% or 20% lower than what Turvold has there as well. On top of that, he's is not getting that increased attack buff. He's not getting that increased crit rate buff. And there's not a lot of sets that actually just straight boost defense, right? Which is always a hard thing to measure. So, when we factor all that in, I think there's a lot of room to improve Michinaki's raw damage on his own. And considering how many ally attacks he gets, that's a huge boost overall to his damage profile, right? Not to mention bringing in a weaken debuff is probably the most significant of things we can add. Not only does it add to the overall team's damage because everybody's doing more damage on their hits, but it adds for the War Master procs, the Giant Slayer procs, all that's going to do more damage as well. So, I mean, I know that if we look at the raw numbers, yeah, it looks like Turvold's clearly heads and shoulders above Michinaki. And to be fair, he's still probably better, right? In a vacuum, just for Clan Boss, for this particular team, yeah, he's probably a little bit better. But if we factor in all the things that Michinaki didn't have, all the disadvantages that he did have, and all the advantages that Turvold has in this build, I think it's pretty clear that this is a much closer case than we might think. And if we're putting up those kind of good numbers with Michinaki with those disadvantages, imagine what we can do when we add them, when we get that increased defense buff up all the time, when we have that weakened debuff out there all the time. There's a lot of possibilities here with Michinaki. I'm so much so that I was really tempted to bring in just Mother Cybele and see what Michinaki could do in place of, bringing her in place of Fushan, just to give us that increased defense buff and like see if maybe we can, make something happen as a result of that. But, when it came down to it, I was like, it's not really necessary. It's not really necessary to be able to do that. I think we get a pretty good idea here on what he can do. And the fact of the matter is, this isn't even Michinaki's best part of the game. His best part of the game is going to be Hydra, where he brings in that AoE decreased defense, that AoE decreased attack, that AoE hex, and that single target HP burn, which is going every time the ally attacks. This is why he's such an insane champion, right? He's just really, really good, especially, I think, for Hydra. And so I'm really excited to be able to build him for that and show off that team eventually. But yeah, this clearly, this is a broken champion in all the right ways. So is Michinaki good? Yeah, I think Michinaki's pretty decent. I think he's okay. He's He's so-so. Yeah, he's a really, really good champion. Definitely somebody that you guys want to look out for. If you pulled him this weekend, he's a great addition for your team. And if you didn't, that's okay, right? I mean, there's plenty of champions out there, and nobody really needs to do 120 million on Clan Boss. It's a little bit overkill. But obviously, you know, this guy can play. He's a really, really good champion. And so I highly, highly recommend taking a look at him, really looking at his kit and seeing if that's something that, you know, you want. Because when you break it down, it's like 20 sacreds or, you know, it's not a crazy amount. I think it's 83 void shards or something along those lines. So like the requirements to get this champion are in line with the other guaranteed champion events we've had in the past. And Michinaki is a really good one. So if you have the shards available for it, I actually do recommend doing it. I mean, I think guaranteed events are the best events because you know what you're getting. Even if you don't get anything else along the way, your pity counter is going up and you're getting something at the end of it that you know you want, which is just as important. Nobody wants to do one of these things and end up pulling an Angar, you know, or a, you know, some other champion that's just not going to help your account, right? This is definitely a much better result than something like that. So 100%, I do recommend this one. I think he's going to be really good. And if you're struggling with Hydra, he's an insane damage dealer for that. And being defensive base means he doesn't die when you build him, which I think is just as important. So lots of good stuff here. Hopefully you guys are, you know, enjoying your weekend and enjoying your time, whether you're pulling shards or not. And so, yeah, hopefully this was helpful and you got something out of it. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the music. Got that SoundStripe link down below. And guys, again, until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.